Hello! In this video, we will be discussing how to use evidence to support inferences in informational texts. When have you heard the word evidence before? Evidence is used in detective stories or courtroom trials. Detectives or lawyers have to use evidence to prove their case. Just like detectives, you as a reader will look for evidence to support the conclusions about what you read. When you draw a conclusion based on your own knowledge and clues from the text, we call that an inference. Let's review how to make an inference. Remember, when you infer, you are being just like a detective. You are looking for clues from the text, plus your background knowledge, or everything you already know, to make a good inference. Good readers piece together clues from the text and filter them through your background knowledge to make an inference. Inferences are not directly stated in the text. Instead, the author gives you clues and you use what you already know to make an inference. For example, if you see a dark sky with lightning and can hear thunder, we can use what we know from our experience to figure out what will happen. So we have the clues of a dark sky, lightning, and thunder, plus our prior experience that whenever we've seen dark clouds, lightning, and heard thunder, it has rained or stormed. So we can infer that a storm is coming soon when we see dark sky, lightning, and hear thunder. Remember, when you read informational text, you can use what is directly stated along with your experience to make inferences. You should always be able to support an inference with evidence. Quotes from the text are strongest forms of evidence. So let's take a look at this picture. And we're going to make an inference from this picture. Remember, an inference is something that is not directly stated, but instead a good conclusion that we drew based on the evidence that we saw, plus our experience. So let's start with the evidence that we see in this picture. What do you see in this picture? Well, the first thing I see is a boy wondering where his steak went. And the next thing that draws my attention in this picture is I see a dog under the table. Now let's look closely at the dog. I see a dog who is asleep. Notice the snoring coming from him. He looks like he's smiling, and he's also drooling. We also see right next to the dog is a bone. So now that we have the evidence, these are all the things, the clues that we saw in the picture, let's think about our experience. When have we experienced these things before? And what does that tell us about them? So, for example, in the past, I know that when I fed my animals and they've eaten too much, they can get sleepy. So this dog has eaten something well. Notice too, whenever someone is drooling, that means they're sleeping well. I also know that dogs eat meat, including steaks. We also know that when we see an empty bone, there has been meat on this. So based on what we saw, the evidence, the boy wondering where his steak went, the dog under the table asleep with a bone next to him, and our experiences that dogs can eat meat and they tend to fall asleep if they've eaten too much, I can make the inference or the good guess that the dog ate the boy's steak. Now again, remember, nowhere in this picture does it directly say this dog ate his steak, but we can infer it based on everything we see in the picture, plus using what we already know. Now let's try it one more time before we move on. In this picture, you see a cat sitting in front of a window. He's been there all afternoon. It's spring and there's trees with leaves outside the window. You have heard chirping and twittering coming from outside. What inference can you make then? Well, using what we see in the picture, that the cat is sitting here and that he's been here all afternoon, we see the leaves and that it's spring, and there's been chirping and twittering coming from outside, I could infer that there's a tree with a bird in a nest outside this window. Again, it doesn't show that in the picture, but I can infer that because we know that cats like to watch birds, and the evidence shows the cat in front of a window with a spring tree. Remember, when you provide your own clues that you gathered from your reading, and along with your prior experience, you can make good inferences about the text.